The 27th of June 2026. You're welcome to this morning's edition of Saturday Special. I hope it is special wherever it is you're watching us from this morning. I am Oluwafumbi Bello saying welcome this morning. Yes, you know we take you through the dailies, governor's activities, travelogue before heading to our interview segment. And this morning I will be starting with the Saturday Tribune. On the front page we have a story on page 3. It says NDC reps on Kogi judgment. It is judicial coup against democracy. And the writer says the timing apparently betrays the intent. The order was issued on the very day INEC was expected to open its portal and issue access codes for political parties to upload candidates for the 2027 election. And moving on to page 16, 17, and 19. It is time to use our common sense to make Nigeria a better place. Obi of Onisha speaks on childhood programs. Okada returns, rekindles security fears across Lagos, and that story is on page 8. And on page 3, troops dismantle ISWAP roadblock, rescue 53 hostages, recover 8 vehicles in Borno. And on page 12 and 21, man tells Ibadan court, my wife threatened me with knife, dates 2 of my church members. And lastly, on the front page of Saturday Tribune is a sports story on page 31. World Cup, Brazil FA wants referee banished. And that's all we have on the front page of Saturday Tribune, taking some of the inside stories, starting with stories on page 2. Nigeria committed to curbing drug scourge through innovative interventions. And that's coming from the president. Commend NDLEA leadership, officers' courage. Lagos building collapse, 9 dead, 27 rescued. Sanwo-Olu orders structural integrity tests on adjoining buildings. $4.5 billion, 2.8 billion naira fraud trial. Emefiele challenges EFCC's bid to tender statement, alleges torture. Policy reforms must deliver better living standards, cleric tells federal government. And that's all we have on page 2 of the Saturday Tribune this morning. How on page 13, talking of feature, how 45-year-old pastor flogged 13-year-old church member's daughter to death over 30,000 naira theft. I only wanted him to counsel her, and that's coming from mother of deceased girl. Diaspora group commends Governor Makinde's response to your school abduction. Oshun 2026. OSMC advises against violence, tasks politicians on fulfilling promises. And on entertainment, the return of Omatara Johnson set for Abuja, Lagos premieres ahead of nationwide release. Davido releases first solo single of 2026. Osazi Odaro lands lead role in Nolly Bollywood collaboration. And that's on entertainment. That's on page 16. And on page 18, displaced by Boko Haram, I believe education is my passport to success. And that's coming from Tada Ayuba, Uniben's first-class law graduate. It is time to use our common sense to make Nigeria a better place for all of us. And that's coming from Obi of Onisha. That story is on page 19. Nigerians not hungry? Really, Mr. Ononuga? That's a question for Mr. Ononuga. We saw the interview, we heard, what he said earlier this week, about the state of the nation. And of course, it has generated a lot of reactions from every Nigerian. The sober bench, finality, courtesy, and the discipline of judicial power. And that's also still on page 20. Reimagining Africa beyond the colonial mirror. And that's on page 25. More stories on page 28. On the road in the southeast, what a 5-day tour revealed about federal projects. State police, Senator Arise advocate checks, balances to curtail excesses. Ibadan community seeks Olubadan Oyo government intervention over continuous threats by land grabbers. And on sports page, WAFCON 2026, NSC, NFF set up welfare committee for Falcons. Sevilla snub Venetia's €10 million bid for Adams. Glasgow 2026, Nigeria lifters to open Aberdeen camp July 3. World Cup, Brazil FA 1 to referee banished. I fear Bafana, says Canada coach. Ivory Coast, coach blast Schwarzenegger. And lastly, we have World Cup. Eze backs Saka to unlock Panama defense. And that's all on Saturday Tribune this morning. Jadisola, over to you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. All right, of course, I'll begin from the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. The major story there says will be NBC e-cards. On page 5, you have the story, Sanwo-Olu orders demolition of distressed buildings after mall collapse. Right, on your abduction, why we declared curfew in 10 local governments. That's coming from Governor Makinde. That story is on page 3. All right, still on page 3, our pastor over 30,000 naira. That story. On page 6, you have the story Dr. Abdul elected president of Forum of Africa Regions. On page 6. And on page 26, our 7 Boko Haram ISWAP commanders returning from Hajj were arrested at airport. That's coming from the minister. Tinubu signs new NIMC Act into law. That story is on page 26. All right, troops rescue 53 hostage, foil a terrorist attack in Borno. Excuse me, that story is on page 2. And of course, you have all the stories there. Let's go to page 4. On page 4 and 5, INEC guidelines for party registration. Tinubu creates National Health Technology Office. Appoint Adigwe Pioneer Coordinator. That story is on page 5. Coming to page 6 and 7, state police funding won't be challenged. That's coming from the deputy speaker. On page 9, we have the story, handwriting for Mikiti off-season by-election. All right, we'll go on to page 10, Iran's bombardment, critical thinking and world order. All right, we'll go forward to other stories there this morning. All right, on the Weekend Live page, inside Oyo Forest, where Igboho combs for kidnappers, captives, rescue team explores clue on hidden tunnels allegedly created by kidnappers. That story is on page 13. All right, we'll check for all the stories. Security guard who returned banks customers $9,100. I found it moments after mom called that our rent was due. Employers plan reward elevation for him. All right, that story is there. All right, on the special one is a Chief Saka to punish Panama's defense. Okon George, why I dumped football for athletics. All right, our stories from the sports stories. All right, you also have more sporting stories. Ex-Eagle coach Trousers backs Japan to knock out Brazil. Renard has no regret despite Tunisia flop. Yes, Germany remains positive despite dramatic loss to Ecuador. And then we go to some other stories. Let's come to page 21, where we have some other stories. Page 22, page 20. Okay, let's take a rave. Damilola Oni, fan acknowledge my beauty and talent always. All right, we'll take some other stories there. Mr. Ibu, controversy trails late actor's family as widow children seek support. All right, a gospel act, Okiki launches Iro Inyi. And then Ashake takes many from studio to global stage. Premier record boss calls on banks, NGX, others to invest in creativity money. All right, macroeconomics of the soft life illusion. That story is also there. All right, how 7 Boko Haram ISWAP commanders returning from Hajj were arrested at Castina Airport. That's coming from the minister. On page 27 of June 2026, setback for Adeleke as PDP's Turaki group backs APM. Lagos resident commends government overrides cash support initiative. Doctors' quarters are on the way in Ekpe Council. Chairperson Araida Adekunle declares for Ogun governorship race. Lagos Louds Line Club, okay, over rehabilitation. All right, road critical to national development, says Tinubu. Army expands manpower, targets 28,000 new recruit. Uzodinma seeks stronger intelligence collaboration to tackle insecurity. And we'll come to the sport extra page. Civil reject offer from Venecia for Oko. All right, you also have Premier Athletic Wash. Giwa Quadri set for double final showdown as then back Salah as weapon to destroy Iran. Tunisia coach Renard has no regret despite World Cup flop. And of course, MPSA's welcome resurgence to scorer on the prowl. That's also there. And scorer on the prowl again. All right, those are some of the stories that made the headline from the Nation newspaper. Fumbi, right. What do we have next?
Yeah, we will be having governor's activities. Let's see what, the governor went through throughout the week. We'll be right back after that. Please stay with us.
The Oyo State Governor, Engineer Seyi Makinde, hosted a high-power delegation of international agricultural experts at his private residence in Ibadan. The delegation, led by Director General of the Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency, OISADA, Dr. Debo Akade, included the Chief Scientist of the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, CGIAR, Sandra Milaj, the Director General of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, Dr. Simon Uwui, the Deputy Director General Research, IITA, Dr. Bernard Van Laui, and other officials of the organization. The visit was aimed at exploring areas of collaboration with the Oyo State government in agribusiness development, agricultural transformation, and food security. Briefing journalists after a closed-door meeting with Governor Makinde, CGIAR Chief Scientist Sandra Milaj reaffirmed the organization's commitment to supporting governments through innovative research, modern technologies, and strategic partnership designed to boost agricultural productivity and enhance food security. She stressed that sustainable agricultural transformation requires identifying critical bottlenecks across agricultural value chains and adopting science-based solutions to address them.
Sometimes you have technology, science, but the bottlenecks are in someplace else. How can we then understand what the bottlenecks are and how we help to do it? Is that in the processing? Is that in the infrastructure, in the roads? All those things I think are important for us to understand how we bring them that to that. And I think, there is a very important role for, the processing industry to also help, to farmers to adopt better varieties, right? Because I think they are at the end, they have to have a very clear proposition of which types of varieties they need, which types of cocoa they need, what types of, yields they are willing to achieve. That helps also us, that pull from the processors help us to work with the farmers to say, how do we then enable the farmers to attend to that?
Also speaking, the Deputy Director General, Research, IITA, Dr. Bernard Van Laui, said the Institute has extensive expertise in cocoa and cassava development and is committed to supporting Oyo State agricultural transformation agenda.
Oyo State is one of the major producers, also investing in processing and value addition, and we talked about cocoa. So these are the two crops also that IIT has a lot of expertise in, and that we have agreed to develop plans together with the governor on how we can advance both value chains to the benefits of Oyo State.
The event was attended by the Executive Assistant to Governor Makinde on general duties, Chief Bayo Lawal. In Catholicism, a monk is a member of religious order who lives a communal life in a monastery. Under monastic rule of life, such as rule of St. Benedict. St. Benedict of Nursia, who died in 547 AD, is considered to be the founder of Western monasticism. For one to become a Catholic monk, you have to be a male, unmarried, a Catholic, and feel called to that particular vocation, which include willingness and malleability to follow the monastic rule and live in a community focused on prayer and service. A Christian monk is to be an instrument of God's work. Monk engage in self-sufficient works and services to the community that include hospices, schools, and a range of agricultural and manufacturing buildings, such as barns. In Nigeria, Ewu Monastery, a Roman Catholic monastery belonging to the order of St. Benedict, is located at Ili area of Ewu Esantan in Edo State. The monastery was established on July 11, 1979, by white Catholic missionaries Dom Augustine O'Sullivan and Dom Kolumamba Brain. Presently, it has 46 monks and a nun who came all the way from Cameroon in their community. The monastery's most visible enterprise is a Nigerian foremost herbal product manufacturing private company known as Pax Herbal Clinic and Research Laboratories, funded by a monk, Reverend Father Benga Adodo Ansem. All the monks here also render different services to humanity, and they live self-sustainable life by fending for themselves, according to Reverend Father Olajide Tony, one of the monks in Ewu Monastery.
A monastic life is a simple life and is an accommodating life. And it's just a life that has to do with prayers. In this sense, it's a call. It's not. I don't think it's for everybody. Just like some were called into marital life, so we respond from this aspect.
The monks pray 8 times daily, 7 times during the day and once in the midnight. It's midday and it's time for sext prayer in Ewu Monastery. According to Reverend Father Olajide Tony, the monk commits himself to the monastery for the remainder of his life, and when he dies, he will be buried at the monastery's cemetery. Professor Kende Anyatayo of Department of Religious Studies, University of Ibadan, also spoke on telephone about monastery life.
Those who live in monastery, they are the people who have designed to live their life for God aside the mundane thing. Even on that day, some people go to mountain to go and pray, because life is characterized by 2 features, physical and spiritual. So on that account, it has that benefit. And even socially too, it's a society on its own. And what happens in secular world equally happens there. They have their own politics, they have their own economy. In fact, some of them engage in some economic activities.
The monastic life is all about community. Brothers see each other every day, learning humanity, living together in harmony. Monks can come from all kinds of backgrounds and cultures. When bickerings occurs, such can be solved immediately. Olalekan Sulaiman. BCOS News.
Home. It's shared moments lived in the now.
Home. It's when concussion rice comes to the rescue, when your homies arrive for sports night or girls hangout.
Home is the moment we live and what's in the pots. After all, what's home without food?
That's why we say, let's go home. There's food at home.
All right, welcome back. It's still Saturday special on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. All right, in our interview segment this morning, we'll be looking at what we call children's addiction to handsets and tablets. That's what we're looking at this morning. And of course, to look at the topic, we have two guests in the studio with us. We have women who are experts in education, and of course, they're vast when it comes to children development. This morning, we have an educationist and school owner, Dr. Mosumola Olaniyan. You're welcome this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also have with us this morning a counseling psychologist and school owner, Dr. Olabisi Awusonya. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Just like you're told,
Being here.
it's a women affairs this morning. All right, childhood addiction to handset and tablets has emerged as a critical global public health crisis, severely altering the cognitive development, emotional stability, and physical health of the younger generation. While digital devices offer unmatched educational and entertainment value, their addiction design pattern exploits the neurological vulnerability of developing brains. Data reveals a direct correlation between excessive screen exposure and diminished life outcome, requiring immediate structural and parental intervention.
Yeah.
All right, let's begin. I'd like to take the first question this morning, and let me begin with Dr. Olanio. Dr. Olanio, when we talk about childhood development, when we talk about their exposure to mobile phones, handsets, tablet, screen generally, what do you make of it?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here to discuss such a topical issue which has affected a whole lot our education, the children we're raising, and the eventual outcome. Now, when we talk about screen, we're referring to the technological devices, tools for learning that has been inculcated in education generally. And we have seen, because of the age in which we are now and the need to raise global students, there's been need for us to bring in technology into education. We cannot make means of the advantages of introducing technological devices into education because we all know the advantages they stand to give to us. However, that is not the subject of discussion today. We are trying to bring to fore the fact that despite all the advantages that technology has given to us and for which we are enjoying, it is affecting adversely the output of the educational sector in the sense that, like this topic connotes, there is addiction to these devices. And ordinarily, it should be a tool for learning, just as we have our senses, just as we have other tools by which we use instructional materials and the likes to aid understanding, to enhance education. But we have seen that these tools are now being misused, they are now being abused, no thanks to the addiction of our children to these devices. And when we are talking about addiction, we are talking about a state where these children cannot do but have their phones and use them excessively, even when they are hurting, even with the adverse consequences of these things. It is so much so that it is altering their focus in the classrooms, it is reducing their attention span, and of course we know the distraction that comes with the use of devices. So when it is not checked, it has negative consequences on teaching and learning, which should not be. So we are saying that when a child comes in and is so addicted, and addiction comes again when you see that at any point you want to withdraw the devices, they bring up traits, emotional traits, behavioral traits that have negative impact on their learning. And so at this point, we are saying that, yes, it's good that we employ all of these devices as tools for learning, but it has to be in moderation, it has to be controlled to the extent that they make use of it for what we ask them. Don't also forget that these devices expose them to a lot of things, distractions.
Before we go to the exposure, I'd like to bring on Dr. Awosoya, to look at all the, let's look at how we even got into this point in the first instance. When we were growing up, I remember that my first mobile phone was after I finished university. So I'm trying to say that it's not because my parents didn't have opportunity to buy me a mobile phone, but it was not in existence at the time I was in. And so let's look at history, how we got to the point of now bringing mobile phones, handsets, tablets into the learning circle. In those days, there were landlines in homes. And that was how we could connect with our friends, families, associates. But today, even babies are given screen from time to time. So let's look at it yesteryears.
Thank you for having me here. It is a great privilege to speak to your viewers. Like you rightly said,
why the mobile phones and these digital devices. We have the world in our palms here now. The world is dynamic. We have to move on. We have to catch up with the Western world. And don't forget, the mobile phone we are talking about now, it's been in existence in the Western world. And for our educational learning to advance and to meet up with the Western world, we have to catch up. We can't be left behind, otherwise we're going to extinction. And let us remember that there are a lot of benefits with these tools, mobile phones and all the digital devices. The only thing we need to do is to put a kind of control in place. We can't do without all these digital devices because the benefits, I'll still repeat, are enormous. And that is why a lot of factors we have to consider, right from the school, the parents, the society. You know, it is an encompassing task for everyone to keep educating, reinforcing positive behavior when our children do the needful and when they don't. We have all those tools to control them. The digital tools and devices are meant to aid educational improvements, academic performance, even to improve mental health, even though there are still negative effects. You know, our mental health, some people may be the kind of environment they find themselves. They are lonely. They get their entertainment through this phone. The major thing and the salient point is to make sure we don't allow those devices to control us.
Okay, I'm going to start with the last point you made now in terms of entertainment. Now, the conversation is about children. And I really do not think children need such entertainment when it has to do with social media, technology, even screen. Now, we talk about cartoons also, but psychologists, doctors have also come out to say, limit screen time for children. And there are a lot of, are there no other ways to engage children rather than making them stick to screen for entertainment? Go ahead with them.
I mentioned control. There must be that parental supervision. Sometimes they use these tools for research. You mentioned cartoons. There should be that time. There should be boundaries. Let parents set boundaries. When you give them phone to do anything, even children, you have to be watchful. Because of the nature of the society now, women, because they work, when they come back, they want to do one or two things. When you give them the phone for them to do the assignments, you have to give time lapse. This so I'm giving you 1 hour. I'm going to collect it back. Then whatever you've done, you have to recall and tell me. So there must be boundaries. You set boundaries. Because if you don't train them now, let me be frank with you. If you now say because they are going to abuse it, you don't want to expose them to it, it's better you expose them to it at all. So that you said you'll be able to know their individual differences. You'll be able to guide. You'll be able to tell them the implications of their actions. If you do this, these are the implications. If you go to this site, and let me tell you something, you know, there are parental control. When it comes to mobile phones, there are ways you can control certain things on the phone. So when you let children know the implications of their actions, buttressing with examples, they will follow your instruction.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Awusonya. I want to bring it to Dr. Olaniyan now. When we have, you are a school owner and you interact well with these children. You see them, sometimes, you know, teachers in school even see some of these children better than their parents do.
Yeah.
I want to understand, or let us all just understand the trend of these mobile phone usage in school. How does it really affect? I know you mentioned concentration earlier, but let's look at it in a practical, from a realistic point of view, as a parent, how does it really affect children in school? And do you think schools should, continue to accept the use of mobile phones? I know Dr. Awosonya said earlier that, some of these children use it for research. They use it for their schoolwork. But there are other gadgets that can be used that would have full control. Do you think it is really a welcome development for children to bring in mobile phones, especially into the school system?
Thanks for this. Now, we are talking about children and addiction when it comes to learning. Children are in categories. We have the infants between the ages of 0 and 24 months, that's 2 years. We have the toddlers between 5 and 7, thereabout. We have the older children from 7 upwards. So, yes, we know that these are tools for learning, and the world has gone digital, and we also need to raise global students. But then, now, in a situation where infants below the age of 2 years is so addicted to screen, of what use is that? Now, the pediatric guidelines recommend that infants should have 0 screen time. That's between 0 and 2 years. That's not what we have now. We have children at that age who are glued to the screen, even at infancy. We have young children, toddlers, who are kept away from productive educational tasks because of tabs. Are we saying that they, at that point, at that age, at those ages, they need them? No. Absolutely, if you ask me. But by the time they begin to know how to make use of these phones, of these devices, then we can talk about introducing these things and controlling. Don't forget that most of us are still aliens when it comes to these children. And the truth is, they are so addicted to the point that our kids, our students, our children are no longer reading. They are not thinking. They are not writing. Everything is on the devices. So, and if learning is supposed to make you a better person through the acquisition of values and skills and experiences, whether through practice or through study, where is the place of learning if everything is on the tab, uncensored? Most of us that we say we want to do parental guidance, control, do we do these things with due regards to us as parents? And you see them when they come to school, they are so disillusioned with the use of these devices that they are easily carried away. Their concentration span is so low. They don't want anything other than the devices. And so this is one of the reasons why there is so much poor performance academically. And it is one of the factors underrated, mostly underrated. So a student that is not doing all of this, and at the end of the day, I just go to the internet, I bring out stuff, I pass it on to my teacher, and I, the student who is supposed to be at the center of learning, is not learning anything. So care has to be taken, caution has to be taken, right from the parents to the school. Now, if there is no reason, teaching takes place in the school, fine, we use devices. But even when there are teachers in the classrooms, I don't think that is the time for our students to be using their gadgets too. But that's what majorly obtains. So where is the teaching and learning here? How effective can that be?
Okay.
So we are saying that beyond the use of tabs, we should, yes, we cannot totally say no to them. But it should have limits, it should have moderation, it should have control because of their mental health. Most of them come back to school, they are so worn out, they are so fogged, their brain is really not working because they have spent hours that is supposed to be used on productive things on the, and you cannot take away the fact that they are picking so many things that are detrimental to them.
Okay, let me quickly ask, Dr. Lani, you talked about no, what you're saying is no to screen for children.
Not absolutely.
While they're in school, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, while they're in school, depends on what they want to use it for. It's just like our learning materials.
So are you saying that children should be allowed to bring their mobile phones?
It depends on what you mean by children.
When I say children, I'm talking
At
about
what point?
I'm talking about children in primary school.
Well, for me, I don't think children in primary school need that at that point, because we cannot even ensure that they are using it rightly. So what is the use at the primary level, except you are telling me it is so important, but for me, at that point, I don't think there's a need for that.
Okay, so at what point should a child be allowed to make use of handset, tablet?
See, it's relative. The use of handset, you can for security purposes. You don't want to leave your children open. You want to track them and all of that. But I'm saying that at some point,
I like you to, and you didn't finish that line, to track them. Where? How?
Security wise, I'm at work. My kids are home, or they want to move from school to home. I need to be able to have access to them. But if the school rules says no phones in school, why should we bring the phones
Okay,
to
so
school?
Thank God both of you are...
So for me, at the primary level, I do not think there's a need. If there is a need for, the school, in collaboration with the parents, will know about this. And again, it will not be beyond what it is supposed to be used for.
Okay.
By the time they're getting to secondary schools, yes, there might be need for it.
What would you be doing with it?
Okay, the assignments. And like we said, there are things we can look up. Even though all these things
I'm talking about while they're in school, in the school premises, should we allow handsets, tablets, mobile phone from children?
For me, it is a no. Because while they're in school, they're supposed to be learning. Teaching has to be going on. So depending on what the structure of the school or the need for it, we have situations where there's a practical class going on for this reason, for this course, you might need to bring it. Fine.
Okay.
But at that point, it should be under control and not excessively used.
I'm still coming back to that conversation, but let me go to Dr. Osoya. Doctor, I see that, I might be wrong, you feel that there's no big deal. Once there can be control, children can have mobile phones or phones to use. And when I say children, I'm not talking about toddlers now. I'm talking about children maybe in primary, in secondary. So are we saying that in your state, private school owners allows children to carry phones to school? Is that what we're saying?
No. It's a no for me.
Okay. So at what point should they be allowed?
In my school, I don't even allow the secondary school students to bring phones to school.
Why?
And that is why the educational facilities the school is providing must be up to date. You don't need a phone in my school to do your research. We have the WowBe board where whatever you need, there's always a section. They go there, the teachers are in control. So whatever research they need to do, the teachers...
So we have established the fact that phones should not be allowed while the children are in school.
Yes.
Now, let's also come back to the use of parents monitoring their children. So my child is going to school, take this phone, when you get to school, call me. Do you also think that is necessary? Because we went to school. We were the same age while these children were also in school. And we were not given phones to monitor, to check if we go to school. At our time, there was also kidnappings. There were kidnappings. Children would go missing, God forbid. But we were not given phones to monitor whether we got to school or we were still on the way. So why are parents these days skeptical and they feel that their children must have phones?
Can I come?
Please go ahead.
Beyond the academic exercise we are doing now and the conversation, a lot also has to do with individual differences. Like, I didn't give my children phones until after the secondary school.
Why?
Yes, because I know that they're not ripe for it. They cannot, I cannot afford to throw them out there on the internet at that point. And if it has to do with academics, there are materials, there are textbooks. So I feel, and I also want to encourage reading. If you need to go online to search for something, which I don't really encourage, you can make use of my phone. So at the point where I know you have gotten it right and where I know you are comfortable, you have crossed the borderline, yes, I can now say, okay, have this. Even at that, one will still have to do a lot of monitoring. So if I say at this discussion that I will not do that, some parents might opt for it. That is not to rule out the fact that the devices have no advantages, but we are shying away from the negative consequences of exposing our children, our students to devices and causing addiction for them. Nobody's saying anything about it. And this is the result we're having today. So we are saying that if it is not necessary, it is not necessary. Because despite the control, if on my kids' gadget, I can install control. But don't forget they're going to school. They're having friends who might not have that on their phone. So if I do not give my children, they get to school and they see children having phones, they pick so much from me. Can I censor that? Can I control that? And again, recently, there was a 12-year-old who was molested, who was defiled by an adult. What happened? What do we have? The adult, the child, and the phone. We cannot undermine the fact that a lot of havoc has been done with this. That is not to say they don't have the good sides, but to the extent that we introduce them too early to these things will cause addiction. The consequences are devastating.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Olanio. I want to bring you to Dr. Awusoyan. Dr. Olanio mentioned that, for you, your children, you did not even allow them access to phone until after their secondary education. And they did not feel. Let's look at Nigeria.
And they didn't miss out on anything.
Let's look at Nigeria today and the security situation. And of course, just like Jadisola mentioned, parents and parents' involvement, with children having phones also. We look at our environment and we realize most times it's often not safe. Mm-hmm. We just want to hear from our children while we are away, while we are at work. Sometimes we even have cause to travel. Mm-hmm. We need to know their whereabouts. Now, are we saying at that instance, or in this current state of the nation, children should not be allowed, or there are certain kind of gadgets we should allow them have and leave the smartphones away from them? Dr. Awusoyan, can you go ahead with that?
Well, I would like to say that I'll still base my own assumption on individual differences. And I'm going to buttress with a fact. I visited the school, and there was this parent, because of the nature of her work. She used to come back home late, a banker. The husband worked somewhere else. So the proprietor now was telling the woman that we don't allow phones in the school. And the woman had to mention her own peculiar case. Then she said, she's a disciplined person. She knows how to handle her phones. And that proprietor allowed the girl. And she kept watching. And let me be frank with you. The girl is a disciplined person. She would never bring out the phone during school hours. It is only when she's going home. Because the proprietor was at the point of, you drop the phone in my office when you come. At the close of work, you pick it up. But she now decided, because we are training them, training is paramount. You won't be with them throughout their lifetime. So it's always good to train, tame, and watch each children's peculiarity. And that is for that girl. Indicating that the parental care and guidance must have started from infancy. But there are some parents whose children will never adhere to that. So what I'm saying now is that parental supervision, training, and letting them to know the implication of things, even at a particular age. Like I said, I don't allow phones in my school, even at the secondary level. We have a school line. If parents want to monitor, they call, through the school line. So that will give information if they are changing guidance, coming to pick them up or drop off, they inform the school through the school admin line.
I'm sorry to say this. I still have issues with that line. A parent is busy, and so it's an excuse for the child to have a phone to monitor. I think it's not right. Children at certain level, there's nothing you want to say they will not obey. It's about their age grade.
Exactly.
It's about the timing.
Exactly.
They don't listen. And when they take phones to school, they use it to affect other children.
Exactly.
So that child is so strict and so obedient. I'm sorry, it doesn't work with children, especially teenagers. They're at that age where they would not listen. There is no game to it. They want to explore. They're in that age where they have to explore.
Yeah.
If you're saying a child in primary school was given this instruction and followed, I will understand. But secondary,